Most people don't wake up tired. They wake up unguarded. Before they even sit up, their mind is already open to yesterday's worries, to unfinished conversations, to imagined conflicts that haven't happened yet. Their phone becomes the first authority they consult. Notifications decide their emotional temperature. Messages set their internal pace. Other people's agendas slip quietly into their nervous system. This is how mental weakness begins. Not through failure, through unconscious exposure. Carl Jung believed the psyche is most impressionable at transition points, between sleep and waking, between silence and speech, between stillness and movement. Morning is not neutral. It is a programming window, and most people give it away without realizing it. They wake up already apologizing to life, already reacting, already behind. Not because they are incapable, but because they never claimed psychological authority before the world arrived. The strongest minds you've ever encountered don't start their day chasing clarity. They start it anchored. They don't motivate themselves. They position themselves. They don't tell themselves everything will be okay. They remind themselves what cannot touch them. This video is not about affirmations. It's not about positivity. And it's not about pretending life is easy. It's about preventing mental leakage before it starts. Because once the day takes your center, you spend the rest of it trying to recover. But when you wake up internally aligned, nothing rushes you. Nothing hooks you. Nothing owns your attention without permission. By the end of this video, you won't feel energized. You'll feel settled. And that is far more dangerous. If you're here to build a mind that doesn't bend at sunrise, stay with the channel. This is not motivation. It's mental sovereignty. Most people believe mental strength is something you build after the day begins. They think clarity comes from effort, discipline, or reaction. Jung understood something far quieter and far more precise. The mind is not weakest hired. It is weakest when it is unclaimed. Morning is the moment when identity has not yet fully reassembled. The ego is still soft. The unconscious is still near the surface. This is why the first internal movement of the day matters more than any action that follows. When you wake up, you are not yet a personality. You are a field. Whatever enters that field first begins organizing it. For most people, that organizer is noise, memory, anticipation, anxiety. The residue of yesterday slides back into place, and the mind resumes its unfinished arguments. This is not awareness. This is momentum. Jung warned that a psyche governed by momentum becomes predictable. Predictability is the true definition of weakness, not because it lacks intelligence, but because it lacks choice. A predictable mind does not decide. It reacts, and reaction always serves something outside the self. Mental weakness is not emotional. It is structural. It appears when the inner hierarchy is reversed. Instead of the self orienting the day orients the self. Instead of consciousness leading, stimuli take command. This reversal happens silently, before the body even leaves the bed. The modern world exploits this vulnerability perfectly. The moment consciousness returns, it is met with demands, messages, updates, signals. Each one pulls a thread of attention outward. Each one weakens internal cohesion. By the time the person stands up, their mental center has already been distributed across dozens of concerns. This is why people feel scattered without knowing why. Their energy was spent before it was ever consolidated. Jung described the ego as a tool, not a ruler. Its role is to execute, not to decide meaning. When the ego wakes without instruction from the deeper self, it defaults to defense. It scans for threats, compares, judges, and prepares explanations. This creates a background tension that follows the person all day. They mistake this tension for normality. But there is another way to wake. The quiet mind does not rush to define the day. It establishes orientation first. It does not ask what must be done. It asks what must not be disturbed. This distinction changes everything. When the inner axis is set before engagement, the world adjusts around it. Mental strength is not aggression toward thought. It is containment. A strong mind does not silence thoughts by force. It prevents unnecessary ones from entering in the first place. Morning is the only time this prevention is effortless. Jung believed that repetition forms reality. Whatever you allow to repeat in consciousness becomes structure. Morning thoughts repeat most easily because resistance is lowest. This is why unexamined mornings produce unexamined lives. Most people wake up narrating themselves. They tell themselves who they are based on yesterday, based on failure, based on unfinished business. This narration feels familiar, so it feels true. But familiarity is not truth. It is conditioning. To interrupt this conditioning, nothing traumatic is required. No motivation. No visualization. Only one act of authority. The refusal to let the mind run before it is oriented. This refusal feels subtle. It does not announce itself. It is simply a pause. In that pause, awareness returns to the body. Breath slows. Sensation anchors attention. The mind is reminded that it is not alone. Something deeper is present. This is where quiet power begins. Not in control, but in coherence. When coherence is present, the mind does not scatter. It moves selectively. Thoughts arise, but they do not dominate. Emotions surface, but they do not dictate. The person feels less rushed, not because there is less to do, but because there is less internal resistance. Jung called this alignment individuation. It is the process of becoming whole rather than impressive. A whole mind does not seek validation upon waking. It does not seek reassurance. It does not seek stimulation. It simply takes its place. Displacement is internal. It cannot be seen, but it is felt by others. A person who wakes internally aligned moves differently. They speak slower. They listen deeper. They react less. Their presence feels grounded because it is not fragmented. Mental weakness disappears the moment the mind remembers where it belongs. This chapter is not instruction. It is recognition. You already know this state. You have felt it briefly, in moments of silence, in moments of clarity, in moments when nothing needed to be proven. The purpose of the morning is not productivity. It is remembrance. Once you remember, the rest of the day follows naturally. If chapter 1 revealed where mental weakness begins, this chapter explains why it persists. Jung understood that the mind does not repeat patterns because they are effective, but because they are familiar. Familiarity creates the illusion of safety. The psyche would rather repeat what hurts than enter what is unknown. This is why most people wake up the same way every day, even when they know it weakens them. The unconscious does not wake up fresh. It wakes up prepared. Prepared to protect old identities, old wounds, old narratives. When consciousness returns in the morning, it is immediately met by these preloaded structures. They do not announce themselves. They simply resume. This resumption feels natural, which is why it goes unquestioned. Mental weakness is maintained by identification. The moment you believe you are your thoughts, you surrender authorship. Thoughts become commands instead of signals. Emotions become directives instead of information. Jung warned that identification with psychic contents leads to possession. A possessed mind is not insane. It is obedient. Every morning, most people submit to this possession quietly. They believe the first thought they have is truth. They believe the first emotion they feel is justified. They believe the first urgency they sense is real. None of this is verified. It is assumed. The ego, left unexamined, is reactive by nature. Its job is to respond to the environment. But when the ego becomes the sole authority, the environment gains control. This is why external events dictate internal states for most people. They wake up already dependent on what happens next. Jung distinguished between the ego and the self. The self is not a thought or an emotion. It is an organizing principle. When the self is present, experiences are integrated. When it is absent, experiences overwhelm. Mourning determines which of these takes command. The reason affirmations fail for most people is simple. They are applied after identification has already occurred. They try to override unconscious possession with conscious statements. This creates inner conflict rather than coherence. The mind resists because it senses inauthenticity. Quiet power does not overwrite. It preempts. Instead of telling the mind what to believe, it reminds the mind where it belongs. This reminder is not verbal at first. It is somatic. Breath deepens, muscles release. Sensation anchors awareness. The nervous system is informed that it is not under threat. Only then does thought regain its proper function. This is why silence is more powerful than speech in the morning. Silence allows the deeper layers of the psyche to surface without interference. In silence, the mind recalibrates itself. It remembers proportion. Jung believed that the psyche seeks balance instinctively, but modern life interrupts this instinct. Noise replaces intuition. Stimulation replaces reflection. Speed replaces orientation. Mourning becomes another battleground instead of a sanctuary. When the psyche is denied orientation, it compensates through control. The mind plans excessively, anticipates catastrophes, rehearses conversations. This gives the illusion of preparedness, but it drains vitality. Energy is spent defending imagined futures. Mental strength is not preparedness. It is adaptability. And adaptability requires presence. Presence cannot exist in a mind that has already left the moment. Most people wake up mentally elsewhere. In conversations they have not had. In problems they have not faced. In outcomes they cannot control. This absence weakens them before the day begins. Jung would call this a failure of containment. Psychic contents spill outward because there is no center to hold them. When there is no center, everything feels urgent. When everything feels urgent, nothing is chosen consciously. Quiet power restores the center first. This restoration is not dramatic. It does not feel like achievement. It feels like stillness. A subtle sense of being behind oneself rather than ahead of oneself. From this position, the mind observes rather than reacts. Observation dissolves possession. When you observe a thought without acting on it, you break identification. When you observe an emotion without justifying it, you regain authority. This is not suppression. It is differentiation. Jung believed differentiation was essential for psychological maturity. Morning is the ideal time for differentiation because the contents are fewer. The mind has not yet accumulated the debris of the day. Observation requires less effort. Most people miss this window because they fill it immediately. They check messages. They scroll. They consume opinions. Each input pulls them outward. Each input strengthens identification with roles, expectations, and fears. By the time they realize they are overwhelmed, the structure is already set. Mental weakness is simply the result of delayed awareness. Strength emerges the moment awareness arrives first. This is why some people feel calm without explanation. They are not calmer by nature. They are oriented. Their mind knows where to return when disturbed. This return point is not an idea. It is an inner position, a sense of being located within oneself. Jung referred to this as centering in the self. From this center, the ego operates effectively without dominance. A person who wakes centered does not need to convince themselves of anything. They do not need slogans. They do not need hype. Their presence is enough to stabilize their inner world. This chapter is not about changing your mornings. It is about reclaiming them. When the mind wakes and finds itself already home, nothing can rush it, and nothing needs to. Once mental weakness is understood, and its mechanics exposed, the question changes. It is no longer why people wake up unguarded, but why they continue to live that way even after glimpses of clarity. Jung would say this is where resistance appears. Not resistance from the world, but from the psyche itself. Strength threatens old adaptations. Awareness destabilizes identities built around coping. So the mind quietly negotiates a return to weakness. This negotiation is subtle. It does not say, I want to be weak. It says, this is practical. It says, I don't have time. It says, I'll start tomorrow. These are not excuses. They are protective strategies. The psyche fears losing what once kept it safe, even if that safety is outdated. Mourning weakness persists because it serves something. It allows avoidance of responsibility for inner authority. If the day controls you, you are relieved from deciding who you are. If your mood is set by circumstances, you are spared from confronting your power to choose differently. Weakness, in this sense, is a contract. It trades agency for familiarity. Jung believed neurosis was not sickness, but meaninglessness. Symptoms arise when the psyche is blocked from growth. The restless mornings, the mental fog, the constant urgency are not flaws. They are signals. Signals that the psyche is ready for a higher level of organization. But growth requires separation. The ego must step back from its compulsive habits. It must relinquish its addiction to noise, urgency, and distraction. This feels like loss before it feels like gain. Many retreat at this stage. Quiet power emerges only after this retreat is resisted. The morning becomes a threshold. On one side is automatic living. On the other is deliberate presence. Crossing this threshold does not require willpower. It requires honesty. The honesty to see how often the mind seeks stimulation to avoid itself. Most people do not wake up tired. They wake up avoidant. Avoidant of silence. Avoidant of stillness. Avoidant of the deeper questions that surface when distractions are removed. The phone is not the problem. It is the anesthetic. Jung warned that whatever is not faced consciously will be lived out unconsciously. Morning avoidance guarantees unconscious living. The day becomes a reenactment rather than a creation. The same patterns repeat because nothing interrupts them at the root. Strength interrupts at the root. This interruption does not look impressive. It looks like sitting still for a moment, longer than is comfortable. It looks like letting the mind wander without chasing it. It looks like feeling the body before naming the day. These acts appear insignificant. They are not. They communicate authority to the psyche. Authority is not control. It is presence without collapse. When the mind senses presence, it organizes itself naturally. Thoughts align. Emotions settle. Priorities clarify. This organization feels effortless because it is instinctive. A problem is not that people cannot access this state. It is that they abandon it too quickly. The first discomfort appears, and they reach outward. They confuse discomfort with danger, but discomfort is simply unfamiliarity. It is the sign of new territory. Jung would say the self always feels strange at first. The ego has lived so long in dominance that anything deeper feels foreign. But the self does not demand obedience. It invites alignment. The invitation is quiet, easily missed. Morning is when this invitation is clearest. When you resist the urge to fill the space immediately, something subtle shifts. Time feels wider. Attention deepens. The day no longer feels like an enemy to survive, but a field to move through. This shift is not emotional. It is structural. You are no longer starting from deficit. Most people wake up already behind expectations, behind obligations, behind imagined standards. This sense of deficit drives their urgency. Urgency drives mistakes. Mistakes reinforce self-doubt. The cycle continues. Quiet strength starts from sufficiency, not abundance, sufficiency. enough presence to choose the next step consciously, enough awareness to say no internally before saying yes externally. This internal no is the foundation of power. It prevents overcommitment. It prevents reactive speech. It prevents unnecessary emotional labor. It preserves energy not through force, but through discernment. Jung believed discernment was the highest function of consciousness, not intelligence, not morality. Discernment, the ability to see what matters and what does not. Morning weakness destroys discernment by flooding the mind with stimuli before orientation. Strength restores discernment by protecting the mind's initial state. This protection is not rigid. It is gentle, a refusal to be rushed, a willingness to let the day wait a moment longer. In that moment, identity stabilizes. You remember who is moving through the day, not just what must be done. From this remembrance, action becomes cleaner, words become fewer, decisions become simpler. Life feels less heavy, not because it is easier, but because resistance has decreased. This chapter is not instruction. It is exposure. Exposure of the quiet deal most people make with weakness every morning. And exposure of the fact that the deal can be broken without drama. You do not need a new routine. You need a new relationship with the moment you wake up. When that relationship changes, everything downstream adjusts automatically. Strength does not arrive loudly. It arrives when you stop abandoning yourself at the first moment of consciousness. That is where the day is truly decided. There comes a moment when strength is no longer something you practice. It becomes something you inhabit. Jung believed this was the true mark of individuation. Not improvement, not discipline, not mastery over others, but a quiet settlement into one's own center. By the time this happens, mornings are no longer a battlefield. They are a return. At this stage, the mind no longer asks how to begin the day. It already knows. Orientation has become internalized. The psyche no longer needs reminders because it has learned through repetition where authority resides. Weakness dissolves not through resistance, but through irrelevance. Most people never reach this point because they mistake effort for strength. They believe they must constantly assert control, manage thoughts, optimize routines, and guard against collapse. This creates a subtle tension that never leaves. Even their discipline becomes another form of noise. Quiet power removes the struggle entirely. When you wake up internally aligned, there is nothing to prove to yourself. The mind is not trying to convince. The ego is not performing. Presence is enough to organize experience. This is why truly strong individuals appear calm, even in chaos. Their center does not depend on conditions. Jung described this state as psychological adulthood, a phase where the individual no longer lives through borrowed values or unconscious imitation. They no longer measure themselves against expectations that are not their own. Their actions arise from inner necessity rather than external pressure. Morning is where this adulthood reveals itself most clearly. An adult psyche does not wake up asking what the world wants. It wakes up aware of what it is willing to give. This distinction changes the entire trajectory of the day. Instead of being consumed by demands, the individual engages selectively. Instead of reacting, they respond. This does not mean detachment from life. It means proper relationship with it. At this level, silence is not empty. It is full of orientation, memory, and coherence. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer dominate. Emotions still surface, but they no longer destabilize. The mind has learned to hold without gripping. Jung warned that when the ego relinquishes its false dominance, it does not disappear. It becomes functional. It serves the self rather than competing with it. This service is felt as ease. Effort decreases. Attention sharpens. Energy is conserved. The individual no longer wakes up, leaking themselves into the world. This containment is not withdrawal. It is clarity. A clear mind does not overshare. It does not overreact. It does not overextend. It knows that power is lost not through silence, but through unnecessary expression. This is why the strongest mornings feel almost uneventful. There is no dramatic shift, no rush of motivation, no surge of emotion. Just a steady sense of being present before movement begins. Presence is not passive. It is preparatory. It ensures that whatever action follows is aligned rather than compensatory. Most people act to escape discomfort. Strong minds act to express coherence. At this stage, the idea of mental weakness becomes irrelevant. There is no longer a fight against distraction because the attraction has diminished. The mind no longer seeks constant input because it is not empty. It is inhabited. Jung believed that when the self is present, the psyche no longer fragments under pressure. Pressure becomes information rather than threat. Challenges are met without collapse because identity is not at stake. This is the final shift, when the day no longer defines who you are, but merely reveals it. Morning becomes a quiet confirmation rather than a test. You no longer wake up bracing for impact. You wake up already standing. The world may still be demanding. People may still project. Events may still disrupt. But none of these penetrate the center. They pass through awareness without taking residence. This is not invulnerability. It is permeability without loss. The strongest people are not impermeable. They are selective. They allow experience without surrendering authority. They remain open without becoming exposed. This balance is rare because it requires trust in oneself, not confidence. Trust. Confidence can be shaken. Trust is rooted. It grows from repeated experiences of not abandoning oneself. Every morning you stay present instead of fleeing, trust deepens. Every time you choose silence over stimulation, trust strengthens. Over time, this trust becomes the foundation of your life. At that point, routines no longer matter. Techniques no longer matter. Even teachings no longer matter. What remains is orientation. You know where to return. This is why the final stage of strength is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It simply exists, unbothered by comparison. Jung would say that this is where the individual stops becoming and starts being. The restless search ends because the center has been found. The mind rests not because life is easy, but because it is no longer divided. Morning is no longer a vulnerability. It is a reminder that you belong to yourself before you belong to the world. And once that is established, nothing can take it from you. Not noise, not urgency, not other people's weakness. This is what it means to wake up strong. Not loud, not driven, but internally complete. The day follows naturally after that, and it always will. If this didn't excite you, that's a good sign. Excitement fades, orientation stays. Don't rush to change anything tomorrow morning. Just notice what no longer pulls you immediately. If you want to keep refining this kind of inner authority, without noise, without motivation, without performance, stay here. We're not building stronger habits. We're building a mind that doesn't lose itself at sunrise.